important things. Is one of the most important things that we have for in order to, it ties all together. Everything ties together with appreciative advising, self-advocacy, mattering, and ties with the empowerment theory. So let's continue. So these are the trends of national trends of undocumented students up to 2018, and the Higher Education Immigration Portal is the source. These first generation students, second generation students, that's why it was important for me to let you know and to acknowledge that undocumented status is not unique to Latinos. We are the great majority under this label, right? But that doesn't mean that it is exclusive or unique to us, and simply because we are the neighbors with this country. But it's my understanding that Latinos are everywhere, even in Russia. So the first generation immigrant students, as you can see, the Latino population and the Asian Pacific Islander, Black, white, and others. Now, first generations are those that are born abroad and they are coming here. That means your DACAs or the ones that are completely undocumented. And then on the second generation immigrants are the ones that are born here and have mixed status households, undocumented parents. And those are sometimes the students that wait to be 25 to petition their parents, right? Work sometimes 2 jobs in order to save the money so that they can go to lawyers and petition their parents. So now the spending power of all immigrants in the United States. This I wanted to show you because it is a sense of empowerment in itself to recognize that our immigrant population, it's at the core of the economic engine of this country. And so we need to empower ourselves knowing that the worthiness of our contributions contribute to the wealth of this country. And with that, understand ourselves that we are amazing, that we have talents, and that there's no lack other than the status, the documented status. So all immigrants, residents, 44 million, I mean, almost 45 million. Total spending power, 1.3 trillion. I mean, trillions. We're talking about an exuberant amount of money that they contribute to this economy. Federal tax contribution, 330 billion. State local tax contributions, 161.7 billion. The immigrant entrepreneurs, 3,242,000. That's a big one. And then employees at immigrant-owned firms, 7 million, almost 8 million. And then undocumented residents. And in the opening, I talked about the spending power of DACA residents in the state of Illinois. But looking at here at the national level, it's pretty big. And then the total spending power, 214.8 billion. Federal tax contributions, 18.9 billion, state and local tax contributions, 11.7 billion, and so on. You get the picture, right? So the importance for me to show you this is to see, right, the value of our contribution, and how also we have the opportunity to put this into perspective, to advocate for ourselves and to advocate for undocumented populations, simply based on they come here to take our wealth, or they come here to live off the government, or all those sort of things. So this is also through the portal, Higher Education Immigration Portal resource. So empower yourselves. For me to talk about empowerment for Hispanic, Latino, Black, white, and API undocumented students means also that we have to learn and we have to empower ourselves also in order for be that person that they need for us to be. Somebody that speaks up on behalf of them with facts, with data, and with knowledge that we are here and deserving to be in this country. So the undocumented student characteristics, the majority, we're not generalizing, however, the majority come from low-income households. They flee their countries for the various reasons, and mainly for the American dream, right? The first generation college students, mostly Latinos, go through that, and African Americans. Many APIs come with visas, and then they overstay the visas. So it varies, right? The level of education of the parents. And then they face academic challenges, and these mostly for Black students and for Latino students, because APIs are usually bestowed upon with a higher intelligence than others. So they face financial challenges. They don't have enough services. They don't have well-informed counselors on immigration issues. They face mental health unique is to these students. The mental health issues, they do face this because they go through that sense of belonging, right? They have college or career uncertainty, the same, mostly for Blacks and for Latinos, and most APIs go into the STEMs, right? So undocumented college eligible students exhibit academic achievement. That's true for all students that are undocumented that come into our institutions, simply because the understanding of them to make themselves worthy through the being high achievers. And then they have the social emotional issues. They are academically unprepared for college. That's mostly for Latinos and for Blacks, not necessarily for APIs, although APIs stay very quiet to themselves. And so they lack self-efficacy and self-advocacy skills. They are intrinsically motivated because they are here in this country. They have to live the dream of their parents, and they are basically trying to thrive in order to fulfill that dream and to make their parents that they didn't come here just for nothing, basically to fulfill their parents' dream. For Hispanics and Latinos and API, most likely they're bilingual, simply because of the collectivistic cultures, and the Koreans, Filipinos, Asians, Chinese, they keep their culture, they keep their language, and so are Hispanics and Latinos. We also, our mother tongue is extremely important for us to keep. For Latinos and Blacks, they're less likely to go into the STEM field, and then more likely to major in the social sciences, social work, psychology, criminology, and criminal justice, teaching, and political sciences. And that goes back so that they can go back to apply those skills that were not bestowed upon them. The more they are likely to attend junior college, and this is in general for all of them, because simply they don't have the financial means to go through a four-year university. They live, like I said, in mixed status households. They're likely work two jobs, help their family. They're resilient, of course. Latinos have ganas to continue the fight, and so are Blacks, and so are the API and white students, and they're determined. That's a great characteristic of them. They're determined. They're likely to accept federal unsubsidized loans because they don't want to carry debt, or maybe their parents do not have the credit, and so they don't want to be carrying that financial burden on top of their parents being undocumented. And they navigate between two cultures, and they sometimes are isolated. This is very common for the Latino community, that they are isolated, already marginalized, but for the API, they're already, as it is, a quiet culture that keeps to themselves. And so when they are undocumented, it is really difficult to really talk or express with somebody. And mostly nobody thinks that an API, Asian Pacific Islander person, is undocumented. So with that takes us to the historical perspective that have influenced undocumented students' livelihoods. And so for this, the deficit and model perspective, that goes specifically for Latinos and for Blacks, right? There's always something wrong with them. They don't meet the standard. And so therefore it's they want to always fix the problem, and they seem to be the problem, but it is not that necessarily. Simply the socioeconomic structures where they live in the school, so long they keep being financed through property taxes, our system of education is going to be broken. So the employed deficit mindset or to frame students' difficulties and perpetuate stereotypes, alienate students from higher education, and disregard the role of higher education in perpetuating the barriers to student success. And that's something that a lot of our undocumented students that work really hard, that are not meeting that pristine 3.0 above, they go through a lot of issues because they're working two jobs, they're doing a lot of other things, and they may be deemed either lazy, they're always late, they're submitting their assignments late, but there's not an understanding of how this is processed by them. And so the same with Black students. Unfortunately, in the state of Illinois, we don't have a lot of Black undocumented or APIs. We do have populations, but mostly they're concentrated in California, where there's these great groups and resources for them. So people in this area, in the state of Illinois, they kind of feel isolated. So it's important to open space for these populations as well. And this is for all of them, but specifically for the Latinos, because we live in this continent, right? So the problem with that is that we're always looked under the umbrella of immigration. Black students, undocumented students, because they're Black, they're not going to be asked where they're from. API students, because they are deemed more intelligent, are not going to be asked if they need resources or if they are undocumented, right? Which is a really supposedly a positive thing, but it is also a negative thing, because then they basically are falling between the cracks. But then on the other hand, the higher microaggressions and macroaggressions to Hispanic Latinos is great, because they think that they don't belong here, right? That they're immigrants, even though 1 in 4 Latinos are US citizens. So those are big statistics to keep in mind in how we are questioned always. Where are you from? Or you speak very good English, and things like that. Those seem to be good things, but they're not really, they're simply microaggressions, as if we're not capable of doing things. So that mostly goes for Latino students, but it is also affected for Black students and also white students. White students, they will not say they're undocumented. Believe me, I have white students in undocumented at SIU, and I constantly reach, and I never get a response. So it is simply because they don't have issues, right? They may not even have problems with accessing resources. So the students' experiences in high school, they're underrepresented in AP classes. They are overrepresented in special education programs. This goes to the mostly Black and Latino students, especially if there are undocumented and they come with a limited English proficiency. They're already deemed, like I said, with a deficit perspective. And then when they acquire the language, it's always a negative, because English was not their first language, so therefore they're not English proficient, and therefore they're still deemed a deficit, not to mention that they're bilingual, right? That's not a positive in these populations, because there's always seen as a deficit, as if English is not our first tongue. So, and always when we talk about overrepresentation and underrepresentation of our student populations, then we're talking about inequality. And that's something that you have to be very mindful of. How are we going to be change agents for equity when we see issues like that? They're likely to be tired of working, like I was saying. They're seen as lazy and motivators, always late. They're more likely to be suspended. And this I'm talking about high school students mostly. They're likely to be put in track programs, or they're not even encouraged to go to college, and or are encouraged to attend junior college, not encouraged to attend a four-year university. They cannot afford it, or they don't have the grades. But I think that within that is embedded the sense of you're not going to make it, instead of the opportunity to empower and convince somebody that there will be people in the colleges and the universities helping them, and that they can have the opportunity to higher education. So there, for a lot of students, this experience is very common, right? This is a DACA student. Has been an undocumented student in the United States is like being cursed and blessed at the same time. Cursed in that you are marginalized by society and you have to live in fear almost every day. Blessed in the fact that you use the experience and you become a much better person because of everything that you have struggled with. You work 10 times as hard. Maybe somebody who takes it for granted because they were born in this country, or somebody who is a legal resident and doesn't know exactly what that means and what power they have. So those are extremely powerful words from somebody that is a DACA student with regards to the sense of I have to work 10 times in order to be worthy, in order to increase my grades, in order to make sure that I ensure my position in this country. So the undocumented issues and barriers, they're, like I talked before, low-income households, immigration issues, mixed status households, DACA, undocumented. These are some of the things that are extremely difficult to deal and navigate. I have a current student that his father went back to Honduras, and the student has to have the financial aid verification and needs the papers from his parent. His father that is in Honduras, he has not heard from his father since January. And so this student is basically stuck. There's no financial disbursement from his FAFSA. And so we are dealing with this emotional toll, first of losing a parent to just basically communication. He doesn't even know if he's alive or dead. And the amount of things that happen with the students that live in mixed status households, or even the students that are the older of 2-3 siblings and their parents are undocumented, and they have to have power of attorney for their siblings because they never know when their parents are going to be deported. If they're going to be deported, at least they're already protected in how they're going to protect their siblings. So there's a lot of racism, labels, aliens, illegals. They face all this rhetoric against them, right? And we've seen it more and more. I mean, simply for the fact that who you are, there are people that are deeming you not worthy of your existence. We just saw this, the shooting, we've seen it in El Paso for Latinos, we've seen it for APIs, Asian Pacific, or the attacks for these populations. And then recently the shooting in Buffalo. So it's a lot. Therefore, they face mental health issues. Of course, they have cultural barriers and they experience other feelings of isolation and the lack of belonging. Any questions, any comments so far? No questions? Well, okay, let me continue. So why I think it is extremely important to help our students to develop skills of self-advocacy. Advocacy, it's an amazing work. But advocacy in itself doesn't happen. Advocacy needs advocates. And so when we are advocating for our students and when we are advocating for better services and resources, then we also have to teach them how to self-advocate on themselves. So the self-advocacy, I'm going to talk about appreciative advising, the self-efficacy model, and then the mattering versus marginality, and then tie everything together with the empowerment theory and self-advocacy. So the empowerment through self-advocacy skills, and it is a broad skill that includes the 4 key elements. They have to know themselves, the knowledge of their rights, the communication skills, and the leadership skills. The leadership skills will come once they went through all the first three stages, right? So know yourself, understanding one's needs and wants, recognizing and applying their strengths, their interests, their preferences, goals, and aspirations. This can happen when you are talking with your students. This can happen when you are conversing. Maybe if you're an admissions counselor, talking with the students and what were the interests that they had in high school and how are they going to move forward in college, or maybe in high school, how are you keeping and helping them to develop that sense of self and sense of understanding themselves. One of the things that I've done, especially with college students, is that I talk about them, their developmental stage, so that they can understand that the issues that are going through are normal, right? Because if that's empowerment, that if they're going through a crisis, that's something that at this stage people are going to go through. But there's also the overcoming that crisis of that stage, right? And so that's hope, and that's providing them with the knowledge of themselves, so that they know what they want, that they know and apply their strengths and their interests. And then the knowledge of rights. What are the resources? Who to go to and where to go to? This is an extremely important, and as educators are the ones that hold those resources, right? Are the ones that we have the opportunity to share those resources with the students, and ourselves be a resource and a safe space for the students, so that they can freely ask us what they need. And so the communication, right? With this one, this is a big one. A lot of our students have gone through a lot of issues already, especially our undocumented students, filing all these 8, 9 forms of 10, 11 pages to acquire DACA status, and or any other issue, or going through with their parents for asking for resources, for things, and they already have that sense of idea that they're not going to be helped them. They're not going to be helped, and so that's an ingrained belief of our students. And so sometimes they really don't want to ask for help, because they really, and that's an advocacy skill that we need to set. Self-advocacy skills is how to know how to ask for what you need. And that is something then, but if you need to ask for what you need, you know, to know yourself, and you need to know where to go to ask for that. But your communication also is going to be a skill that is going to help you acquire that. There are students that may be already sick and tired and really tired with the system. There's rejection. There's that sense of not belonging. You're asking for what you don't deserve because you're not from here, and all those kinds of things. And they just go around in circles, not wanting to ask because they already feel unworthy of asking for what they need. Or they don't have assertiveness. They don't have that sense of guts or ganas to go and say, hey, I need this, and this is important for me because this is my life. And so we need to help them and empower them to be able to ask those skills. That means that for some students, we're going to have to tame their aggressiveness because they're already tired, and they go and ask for things that they need but demand them. And so of course other people are going to be upset and they're not going to help them. But then on the other hand, we have the students that do not have the assertiveness to go and ask and verbalize their needs. So we have to teach them, even role play role, help them to just a conversation, help them to visualize what they're going to be doing, help them to prepare to see what they're going to be asking. And then that takes them to some leadership skills. If they go through all those, they're already good communicators. They already know where the services are. They already know how they found themselves and how their interests is and how they work in themselves to recognize themselves. And then they have those leadership skills, because now they can be helpful to others. They can be engagement. They can be the self-advocacy for themselves and for others. That's when you create leadership advocacy groups to go and speak. I have megaphones for my students because we have to learn, and we have to raise our voice. And that's something that being empowered through learning self-advocacy and empowered to know what you are, who you are, what you need, especially in college and in high school. And in high school, we need to start from kindergarten, right? To help them verbalize what they need. But in college, that's it. And if they don't ask, we give access and opportunity, but if they don't ask for what they need, we cannot save all students. And we have to empower them with these skills. So teaching self-advocacy through appreciative advising, this is another thing. And I don't know if you are advisors, counselors, but appreciative advising is basically you build a relationship with your students. You, like I said at the very beginning, my practice is no blame, no shame, and no assumptions. The student comes as they are. They've done bad things. Okay, what do we learn from this and how do we move forward? They, I don't know if you, the SWOT analysis, I make them. So their strengths, their weaknesses, their threats, and their opportunities. So we talked about that. What is it? We just put a page in 4 squares, and we talk and self-reflect. What are the things that are your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats? So you build trust with them, and you basically disarm them. And that's when you also know that if you are teaching somebody self-advocacy skills, you also have to be that person that receives them and that understand that maybe they're learning that process, and that us, the adults, the educators, are the ones that are going to educate them, take them sometimes by the hand, sometimes a little bit of a shove and a push to help them understand these skills and to help them develop those certainties in themselves, that self-assurance. So uncover their strengths and their assets, ask them what they want. And if we already have learned how to, with self-advocacy, then that's going to be easy. Be inspired by each other's hopes and dreams. You know, I'm like an open book with my students. I talk with them about growing up. I talk about the things that they are also interested, so that I can set up a trust, so that they can say there's no, of course, right, within reason and within the appropriateness of practicing a relationship with your students, but the importance is for them to talk about, to not be scandalized by the things they do. Believe me, I've learned so many things because I grew up in a very conservative, sheltered Mexican family, but I don't scandalize myself because I'm not living their experiences. But at the same time, if they come with that trust to tell me what they're doing and what they've done, it's just like I'm going to have my poker face, right? And it's just, okay, so what are we learning from this? What are we going to do? So then we can go construct plans to make their goals a reality. Just basically, right? With those sort of a SWOT analysis, we get to say, okay, what is your outcome? What if this bad semester or this bad GPA taught you? Okay, well then, what are the things that you're not going to carry to the next semester? What are the things you're not carrying to the next year? And then just be very helpful in insightful, being insightful with themselves. And then provide the mutual support and accountability to the process, right? I always tell my students, call me out. If I said I was going to do something and I don't do it, call me out. So, and that's an accountability piece that we're on the same page. I said, but also I'm going to call you out. But when I do engagement and I have all these amazing students helping, it is just, I always tell them, you have my back, I got your back. Because it is really a sense of understanding a community, a family. And that goes through creating this sort of environment and spaces for them, being that appreciative of what they're teaching, about what they're learning, and learning ourselves with them. The better we learn from them, the better we're going to help them meet their needs and help them succeed. That's my one of my mottos as well. And so challenge each other to set higher expectations for their educational experience, right? We talked about it. What are the things that you learn that you will not take the next semester? What are some of the mistakes that were done? And I always tell them, if you learn from your mistakes, that's a life lesson. But if you keep making those mistakes, then you're creating a lifestyle. And mistakes should not be a lifestyle. So with self-efficacy, it's a Bandura, one of my favorite social cultural theory. It says that it's the belief of one's ability to successfully execute a behavior required to produce a certain outcome. Academic self-efficacy is the belief in one's ability to perform the tasks necessary for success in school. Now, if we think about our undocumented students, all the barriers, or our students that live in mixed status households, right? So many of them come with first generation college students. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to are going to do well or perform well in school. And so with self-advocacy, if they know themselves, then for sure they're going to have the self-efficacy, because they're going to know that they have the ability to successfully execute produce a required outcome. And so that's extremely important. Also, it ties all together with self-efficacy. It is that sense of, I know I can do this. And then we always have, as Latinos, the Si Se Puede banner. And so this is something that it is also very important to do. And then you really, it is the self-efficacy was related to higher education, acculturation, and outcome of the GPA. This demonstrates the importance of considering culture and the belief that they can succeed in college, as well as the important link between self-efficacy and the academic outcome. Simply, right? If you do well, you know that you can do it. If you're doing it, then you're doing it well. And it is just basically that sense of academically performing much, much better. But for enhancing self-efficacy, it's also that sense of, we're going to boost their ego. At this stage, it's okay to boost their ego. So if we do performance attainments, we discuss progress and provide positive feedback. We spotlight students' achievements, helping students set achievable goals. I have a very active Facebook and a very active Instagram, and I have a big frame in my office about the students, and I tell them, this is you. This is you. And I ask them sometimes to read it, because I am an original. It starts the sort of like a poem. I am the writer of my own story. And it is very empowering. And I tell them, read it. And then I take pictures of them there, and then I post them on Instagram, and always with the sense of joy that these students are coming to my office, that I have something to provide, that they feel like they are in a safe space, and that there is this sense of they're going to be valued. And so the vicarious experiences, the effective models, right? So some of my students are the effective models of other students. And then we build this sort of a trust, and that sort of an admiration among our students. And we build a sort of like a family, a sense of pride of being in a space where we're thriving together. The verbal persuasion, you can do it. And I believe in your statements, the Si Se Puede, and in other, for all your other API or Black students or white students. I mean, you know them better. If you pay attention to your students and you see them, really see them as they are, then you know your students. And then the psychological and emotional arousal, helping students reduce stress, normalizing stressful situations, use students' strengths and resilience. And this is something very important. Many of our students, especially in college, they're going to come with, I don't want to be in this major anymore. And so they catastrophize that sense of that they are failing in the major that they originally chose, and they thought they were going to succeed. That's okay. That's okay. And I always tell them, you know, right now, if you're having a professional crisis because you are going to change your major, better to have it right now than 10 years down the road where you are unhappy and maybe married, and then you have an effect on other people that maybe because you didn't take action right now. So right now, if you're going to have a professional crisis, it's okay. to have it, make changes. Let's see how we can help you. And then we normalize something that is really no big deal. College students change majors consistently. And then, like I said, use student strengths and resilience. And who better than our students, our undocumented students? My goodness, I really feel privileged and blessed to have such power of people that I admire so much, and that they're so inspiring. So they show their resilience regardless of the things that they have faced, and it's absolutely amazing for me. So there's this theory of Schulber's marginality and mattering. For those of you that are not in higher education, or that have not come and across this marginality and mattering Schulber theory of college student development, that marginality and mattering is not just at college level, right? And especially not just for undocumented students. All of this that I'm telling you works with everybody, but we will help our empowered students, our undocumented students even more. But this is a sense of not fitting in and can lead to self-consciousness, irritability, and depression. As it is, our undocumented populations already face a lot of mental health issues. And then this sense of marginalization, they're already marginalized. So for some, marginality can also refer a permanent condition. For many bicultural individuals, marginality is a way of life, right? We're talking also APAs, how they are very quiet, kept to themselves, and how Latinos were marginalized, and how Black people also, right? Black students and undocumented students would tend to gravitate and have that sort of what we call the affinity bias, where we feel that we're going to be accepted, our same group. But that's also part of the sense of being marginalized, of being deemed different in this country. On the other hand, mattering, his sociologist Maurice Rosenberg and his colleagues suggested mattering is a motive, the feeling that others depend on us, are interested in us, are concerned with our faith, our experience as an ego extension exercises a powerful influence on our actions. This is something extremely important, right? One of the things that I always say, without students, I wouldn't be here. Just as simple as that. Therefore, in that same token, they are extremely important for my profession, important for my development, and important for me to cultivate these amazing people into our future. So simply for me, that if it is with the ego extension, if I make them like I need them, because I need their empowerment, I need their struggles in order for me to be more creative, to create the successes for them. So it is one of the things that I really, really would like for people to understand, and to have the sense of empathy, to see the people for who they are, not with the rhetoric or the assumptions that we hold about others. But there's and this is for Hispanic students, but it is applicable for all the students, right? So it's the attention, the feeling that one is noticed, the importance, that belief that one is cared about, the ego extension, the feeling that someone else will be proud of what one does, or will sympathize with one's failure. I mean, it's the same, right? Okay, you fell, let me get up, let me help you get up. And we are there, right? That's why the no blame, no shame, and the no assumptions, because failure, as it is, it magnifies in our communities, in our undocumented communities, because if we fail, it is, see, I told you so, or see, you don't meet the standard. And so those things are extremely important for us to really be able to sympathize, to empathize, to promote the strengths of our students. And if we know them well through appreciative advising, then we're going to be able to really boost their ego and help them be confident and powerful students. And then it's the dependence, the feelings that feeling of feeling needed, right? I do. I mean, I feel like I said, without my students, I wouldn't be here, or I wouldn't be researching these things so that I can help them better. And then the appreciation, the feeling that one's efforts are appreciated by others. That's something extremely important. And that's in general for others. Who doesn't like to be valued, appreciated, liked? Those are human needs for all of us. And especially for undocumented populations, we want them to be appreciated. And that's why at the very beginning, I demonstrated you at the national level the impact of the contributions, of the talents, and of the tenacity and hard work of our immigrant populations. So the empowerment theory is just the empowerer ally. I always am empowerer. It's just like a word that, I mean, maybe it's there, but every time I write empowerer, the autocorrect tries to autocorrect it. So I think that that's the most important thing. We have to be empowerers. We have to empower ourselves in order to be empowered. It's just like those are the kinds of cycles that we should be in. I empower myself to empower others so that others empower others, and we continue, right? So empowerment theory can serve as a theoretical guide for the practice of social justice. Who doesn't need social justice in the undocumented community? Like I said at the beginning, advocacy work does not mean anything without advocates. And so social justice comes with that sense of advocacy. So that is people mutually reflect on social positions and circumstances. New approaches are framed and actions are taken. We are simply in this conference right now because advocacy, because social justice. And so that's empowerment. We're empowering, learning ourselves so that we can teach, educate all of us together so that we can create better pathways of success for our undocumented populations. An empowered ally, someone that will never speak on your behalf, but will empower you and support you to speak about your needs. I don't know the needs of my students. I will help them find their own needs, but I don't know their needs. So I'm always going to say, okay, I'm behind you. You're going to do this, but you're the one that has to speak on your behalf. I will do a letter of recommendation. I will do all kinds of things. But for them to need and request, I had a student that came crying to my office because her APA style paper, this is a freshman student taking a 300 level class and an APA style research paper, and comes crying. And she's like, I failed. I got an F on my paper. And it's like, okay, so where did you go? How did you have the opportunity to do your APA paper? Well, I didn't never ask anybody. I said, okay, well, this is how we're gonna work. First of all, you're gonna email the instructor and you're gonna tell her that you need the opportunity to redo your paper, and that somebody else is going to help you and teach you APA style, and that you're gonna go to the writing center and see if she can give you the opportunity. We can only ask. And so she, and I said, and copy me in the email and tell that I am asking you to do this because you need to learn to advocate for yourself. It was a simple email that she wrote, and the response from the professor, which I don't have a lot of responses like that, believe me, was like, I really like and I understand about self-advocacy, and I really appreciate that you are learning a skill that many students do not have in college. And so yes, I'm going to give you. My student was asking for an extension to redo the paper of 3-4 days, and the professor extended for a whole week. So those are the things that's like, when I read these emails, and it's like, it works. It works to empower our students to be able to self-advocate. And so that's why I'm saying all of this is tied together. And then the empowerment is a process that can take place in 3 levels: the personal, which is a critical consciousness, a positive identity, taking social action and social change. People, Illinois Dream Fund, all the people in the Chicago area that have done this, it's amazing. And look where we're at on the 8th annual Sharing the Dream Conference. So this is taking action, this is positive change, this is social change. And then in the community, it's an extension. High school counselors can facilitate community empowerment and civil action by encouraging students to participate in their communities. through self-advocacy groups, to service. This can assist in development of self-confidence as well. And self-confidence is self-efficacy and self-advocacy as well, because if you're self-confident of what you need, you're going to ask for it. And then this, at the social-political level, we have the Rights Act because it's a social political level, and that's an empowerment. We have the new bill, House Bill 3438 for liaison in colleges, social action and social political action in change. So involving your students in associated students body in their school, faculty advisory, student advisory meetings, parent-teacher committees. I have right now in the undergraduate student government 2 senators that are DACA. And for me, it's just like, okay, we're strategizing, right? So where do we put these students and where do we have the most impact? So they're amazing. And that's what they're doing. They're senators for undergraduate student government. So finally, offer a safe space and brave space to your students. This I've said before. Sometimes we have to be brave in order to advocate, in order to challenge policies, in order to challenge behaviors that are oppressive. So be a brave space. Right? Be a brave space in telling your students, copy me in the email in which you're challenging your professor. That has to be, we are a safe and brave space, because we are looking in, we are in an institution of education. We ought to be opening paths for the students to succeed. If we are not doing that, then let's check ourselves. If we are having some issues with a student, how they look, how they walk, how they talk, how they dress, let's have a conversation with ourselves in why does that bother us and why does that can influence the best practices in your job, because that should not matter. You can teach them for the professional life, but that should be a barrier for us to continue doing our work. And so offer responsive services, no remediation. Sometimes remediation is too late. Sometimes remediation doesn't happen. And we have to understand that we're not gonna save all our students. It's just not. But at least we're going to know that it wasn't up to us, that at some point, as they say, right, the student is not ready for the lesson. And so we just have to be very cautious about that and offer accountability and honesty. I talk with my students. I said, okay, if I'm going to stick my hand for you in the fire, I don't want any lies. Tell me what happened, tell me the truth, and I will be there. Because no blame, no shame, no assumptions. And then empower them to self-advocate and be beside them in their high school or college journey. I mean, it's the college journey. Every Hispanic Latino recognition ceremony for me is the cherry on top. It's amazing to see these students, and it's painful too, right? Because I see them, some of them since freshman year, and then all of a sudden they're ready to fly. It's an amazing feeling, but it is still part of that sense of wow, they're done, and that's what you want. That's what you want, but it's also that sense of, okay, I'm not going to see them anymore, but keep in touch with them. I still have students that call me. I still have students that request that are graduated from in 2019, 2018, that they still call me for advice or for just simply for advice or to share their good news. And then finally, I wanted to leave you with this quote. I'm a quote person, so this is something that I saw and I really, really liked it. And it says, speak in such a way that others love to listen to you. And okay, the spelling, I apologize. And listen in such a way that others love to speak to you. So basically, the speak and the listening, right? But the common thing is that sense of love. How are you inspiring? I don't think that we should be afraid to say at the word love in passion in what we do when we are talking to our students, when we are cultivating the future. And so I think that that's something that is extremely important, that, as they say, we have 2 ears to listen better and 1 mouth to speak. But let's speak with a sense of greatness and in consideration, so that our students have the opportunity to tell us. And so that let's listen with our ears, and with compassion, and no embarrassments or shames or anything, so that they can really feel listened to and cared for in our practices. So that's my presentation. If you have any questions, I'll gladly answer, or any comments. And I don't know if I went too fast, but I have the other the panel. I'm going to monitor moderate the panel of SIU DACA students. So if you have any questions or comments, please share.
Hi, Christina. Thank you for sharing that information. I've just been rattling around with this for the past hour, and I think this was really interesting. And it's honestly a balancing act. You know, all of us are in this role because we like to support our students, but there's that wall that you run into where, you know, doing things for them isn't really helping them. And that's something that I've really had to untrain. So this was just really helpful. And I appreciate the tangible tools to help students feel like they matter and to challenge them. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that's you're absolutely right. We have to understand that we cannot help all of our students. I tell them sometimes, I can throw you a lifesaver, and if you don't grab it the first time, I may throw another one. But if you keep drifting, my arm is only going to reach so far, right? And so, but then at the same time, some students that feel they fail, and they feel like that's it. It's just like, there's always something to do. There's always, you have to ask. Don't take the no for an answer. Ask. If it happens, it's just like, what if they say no? What if they say yes? Any other questions or comments?
I just want to say, yeah, I echo what Terrence said, and appreciate all that you shared today. But definitely, as we advocate and as we teach self-advocacy, I'm always drawn to how my students tend to help each other. That when they are being advocates, they're also self-advocating, and that's empowering as well, when they can reach out and say, you know, I'm in the same position as you are, or I'm in a similar position. This is what has helped me. And I think that's when we allow our students the opportunity not only to just kind of speak for themselves, but to actually call them experts and say, you are the expert of your story. You are, you know, this is what you do, and this is how you've overcome, and that's important, and that's valuable to others. And that as you go through and advocate for yourself, you're advocating on behalf of others, is quite empowering as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that that's one of the things that that creates that sense of engagement and leadership, right? And creates that sense of our students to have a role model. And we go to the vicarious role models in the self-efficacy aspect, right? Some of our students can be that, because they are helping each other. And the one thing is that it's very, very, I mean, we're all going through the same things. We just don't talk about it. I used to tell my high school students that I used to do a work about hopes and dreams, hopes and fears. On the one side of a note card, they would put all their hopes, and then on the other side, their fears. And then no names, anonymous. And then I would gather them. And 95%, they had the same hopes and they had the same fears. They have the same, they wanted good grades, they wanted to have friends, they wanted to be liked, they wanted to have a phone, they don't wanted to be a bully, they don't wanted somebody to bully them. And they were going through the exact same things. And I used to tell them, and so what's the problem right now here? There's a door that everybody can walk through, because on the other side, everybody's needs are there. But then on the other hand, you are shoving each other, you're pushing each other. and you are creating yourselves a bad experience in your high school or in your college. So just helping them self-reflect about that empathy, that helpfulness, that service, that sharing something that you have that others don't. It's a gift in itself. And that's empowering. And it is teaching self-advocacy and leadership and engagement and becoming a role model and feeding off of each other's success and altruism. Any other questions or comments? It's 2:01. I think it's about time to go. Jonathan, where you at? Where are you? Okay. Thank you so much for attending this session. I appreciate it greatly, and good luck with all your students, and much success to all of you.
Thank you, Christina. And again, a reminder, 2:15, student panel from SIU students. Make sure you join us. Yeah, thank you again.
Thank you, everyone.